Ironically, the expectation trap nearly never happened. I made that video over 15 different times before I had something that somewhat worked. And I know a lot of people would call those 14 failures, but I've learned to look at them a little differently. With the expectation trap, I started out with a long-winded 7-minute audio piece, which I accompanied with an expectation of a visual representation of what was being said. But as foretold in the actual video I was making, these expectations didn't match the reality of the product. This is usually where I would throw myself overboard, abandon ship as the waters were getting rough. Instead, this time I faced the problem head on, reading up on a range of different creative ideologies and techniques. This is where I came across what is known as the constant prototype, a way of looking at failure differently, a simple rephrasing. All of a sudden my creative process had changed. I started to realise with each attempt I was getting closer and closer to what I knew would be the final, fully realised piece. It was like I had become a paleontologist, unearthing the true bones of the idea after each dig. You can see a famous example of this by looking at the icons of creativity, Pixar. You see, they are in a constant process of creating the film through storyboards, rehearsal, and syllabuses. That's my syllabus. Ah! Jesus. Internally, they call these prototypes reels. The director or directors each show the current and finished version of the film, or often brief scenes, in front of the entire team. Everybody is encouraged to give feedback on the reels, and then that feedback is implemented into the next version of the project. And through this collaborative prototyping, they end up with what they believe is the best possible product, which in itself is a prototype that teaches them a lesson for the next film. And they make especially sure of this at Pixar by having the entire team do what they call a post-mortem. This is where everyone can have their say on the failings and mistakes they encountered during the process, and the ideas that they have to improve upon these slight flaws. Of course, the flexibility of animation is the perfect environment for creative experimentation and innovation. But I don't think that should limit the practicality of this approach when it comes to implementing it into other mediums, including ourselves. You see, I think so much stress and anxiety can come from this pressure to know who we are and stick to it. But in my mind, the idea of self is a fluid concept. So by viewing ourselves as prototypes, it takes that pressure off of our shoulders for not having that solid view of self. I feel that it kills aspirations and especially education in its tracks by seeing failure as a finality and not a stepping stone. I remember so many times in my life where I tried, failed, and then saw that as the end. I was a failure of that particular thing. So I think by viewing ourselves as prototypes, it'll take the power away from that word and its connotations on our lives so that we can not just be healthier as creators, but as human beings. My last project was a product forged through prototypes. Looking back, I see every single one of its flaws, the mistakes I made, and the lessons it taught me. And that to me is exponentially more valuable than making something flawless. I do want to stress that this approach might not work for all of you, but it's a method that you can try in order to better understand yourself and how you work. All I aim to do is give you a technique in order to help you break through the barriers that I myself have been trapped behind. I can show you how I use a brush, but I can't show you how to paint. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope this helps. Thank you for watching.